Now, is James Gunn up to the task? I just heard that interview he did on what was the podcast? God, I forgot.
Michael Rosenbaum's interview. Yes.
Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum's interview. I thought it was interesting. They talked a little bit too much about personal that I don't care about, which is fine. But you know, is he up to the task? I don't know. Like, I don't know that you can plan a universe. I feel like a lot of things happened, luckily for Marvel, by accident. It was just fortune and good luck, and it was very good, strong, creative people at the top, including, who doesn't get enough credit, Gunn, Favreau, Robert Downey Jr., among others. And there's no head of the ship at Marvel anymore. James Gunn really hasn't been given a shot, so I say let's wait a couple years. And I do have faith in him. I knew him before he became huge. The last time I really had a significant conversation with him was before the first Guardians came out. He came to a Christmas party I had, and we were just hanging out like we were at a Comic-Con party, kind of. And he was saying he couldn't believe it. Marvel was just letting him do whatever he wanted, which was surprising. So he was kind of surprised by it. And but in any case, you know, I don't know. You know, this industry is a weird industry. It can change you. He seems pretty much the same, if you ask me. And I did enjoy Guardians 3. But he didn't come right out and say we're just doing a hard reboot. It felt like that. When you see the ending of this movie, it feels like this was like the sort of two end of the film scenes. I'm not going to talk about them. I don't know if your audience wants
I would say it's a swan song.
I suspect that most people watching, either if they're going to see The Flash, they've already seen it, or they don't care. Same thing with Elemental. I'm not personally concerned about talking spoilers. They've been all over the internet at this point. Mm-hmm. So just warning everybody out there, I don't want to handcuff Chris and script on this one. So if we need to talk spoilers, let's talk spoilers. Let's break down the nitty-gritty of what's worked, what's broken.
So there's here you go. 3, 2, 1. The post-credit scene after the credits is a drunken Aquaman and Flash, and they've been hanging out. And you know, Barry's been telling Aquaman, "Hey, Arthur, you know, hey, this is kind of weird. I had a weird experience. This is bizarre." That scene went on longer. So a friend of mine saw a test screening of it over a year ago. And the movie was about 30 minutes longer. He said it was much better. It didn't kind of rush things and whatnot. It was a better film at 30 minutes longer, if you can believe that, nearly 3 hours.
Wow.
But he said that post-credit scene went on longer. And Barry takes Arthur to sleep off his, you know, drunken stupor, sleep it off on his couch at his apartment, flips on his computer, and there's Henry Cavill Superman and Ben Affleck Batman. And they say, Barry, you know, Batman says, "Barry, what have you done? You're in the wrong universe." And then it just cuts to black. So maybe it was going to be a cliffhanger that tied into another film. And I think that also it's going to confuse audiences even more when a Robert Pattinson Batman movie comes out in a couple years and Joker 2 comes out. Like, what are these movies? Do they connect or not? Are they in
Joker 2, the musical, right?
I mean, it was always easy to, like, I actually think that movie will be very good.
It's an interesting concept.
Just because I'm gonna sound like such an. Please feel free to call me out. But okay. I knew Todd Phillips back in the 90s. I distributed his first movie, which is a documentary about Gigi Allen. And he's an indie filmmaker through and through. He was one of the founders of the New York Underground Film Festival. If you watch Todd Phillips movies, they're very indie, very punk rock, he's Gen X. He doesn't give up, which is why I like him. So, and I quite enjoyed Joker. You know, I mean, he was his suggestion when he pitched Joker. He said, "Why don't you just do like a, you know, you can call it the DC Black series. These are like out of the timeline. It doesn't matter. They don't connect to anything, but they're just stories from the DC universe." He pitched that. They didn't go with that idea, but they let him make Joker for $50 million. It made $1 billion. Okay. Flash is not going to make $1 billion. And if James Gunn is smart, he's going to get back to his indie roots, because if you look at the original Marvel, the original early phases of Marvel, even the Captain Marvel directors, they all like were Sundance directors or people who had made indie movies. I mean, James Gunn's biggest movie before he made Guardians was Super, a movie with Rainn Wilson that's basically a bigger budget trauma film with a heart, right? It's a very weird movie. I love that movie. It used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on it. I use an app called Just Watch. I strongly recommend. It's the movie that got him the job on Guardians, along with a lookbook. And if you don't know what a lookbook is, it's a tool that a director will give. They also do a thing called a rip-o-matic. A rip-o-matic is when you rip off scenes from other movies to kind of show how the tone of the movie you want to make. And a lookbook is a sort of book of images, could be music, whatnot. It just sort of shows, like, it's a presentation, like a PowerPoint that shows, like, this is what I kind of want the movie to look like, you know? I mean, back in the day, George Lucas had, 12 paintings from Ralph McQuarrie to sell Star Wars, right? This is the modern version of it. It's called a lookbook.
Yeah, which is the dumbest name I've ever heard, because I remember when it first came out, and I'm like,
name.
lookbook. You look at every book. It's a PowerPoint. That's what it is. It's a freaking PowerPoint.
The look of the movie, it's a PowerPoint effectively. But
script. They hired the finest kindergarten class in Soho to come up with that name. Come on.
Well, James Gunn made an incredible presentation for Guardians that got him the job. I mean, he's a legit visionary. Read his book. He wrote a novel called The Toy Collector that is freaking weird, and he's a legit nerd, so, which is why, like, I kind of have faith, because I don't think Kevin Feige is. I think Kevin Feige kind of knows the world. He's been decent at hiring people, but of late, I think what happened is he got absorbed into corporate Disney nonsense, which explains, wait until you see this Wednesday, Secret Invasion comes out, and it's
you saw it already. You
the first two episodes. There's a video on my channel where Alan and I talk about it, but on Film Threat, check out that video. Bottom line is, Nick Fury's been in a ton of the Marvel movies, right? I can't count them. Someone in the chat knows, but not me off the top of my head. Great character, they race swapped him. Nobody cared. I mean, they race swapped him in the comics, and then Sam Jackson. I mean, he's just a great casting choice, right? He's got the gravitas. He's got the kind of grizzled, I've been through some things, like, who doesn't love Sam Jackson in schlock, even like Snakes on a Plane? But never in any of the Marvel films has the subject of race ever come up, ever, with Nick Fury. No one ever said. No one ever questioned him.
Nobody cared. Nobody cared that he was black when they cast him. It was like, oh, it's Sam Jackson. It's going to be so great. That was my reaction.
That's everyone's reaction. And this is a thread in the first two episodes, at least. And it's shocking. There's a conversation between Don Cheadle and Don Cheadle's character, Rhodey, and Nick in the second episode that is just, I mean, my jaw hit the floor. I wrote down the dialogue, and I talk about it in my review, just because I couldn't believe I heard this in a show. This exchange is basically saying, hey, you should help me because you're black and I'm black. And, what are we going to, just, I'm tired of mediocre men getting these positions, it was just, I couldn't believe it. Like, Alan and I were both like, why is this in this show? I mean, aside from the fact that it's kind of boring and it's a Bourne wannabe, but by Disney, because Disney would be great at doing a show that has the tone of, the Bourne series. It's bad. It's bad. People are going to check out the first few episodes, and then they will check out completely. And if they use the same standard, I think the standard at Netflix is if less than 50% of the audience, like, there's an audience that begins watching the show, and then what is the percentage of people who watch the first episode that watch the last episode? And if it's under 50%, that show gets canceled.
I want to read something here that I don't know if you've seen this yet, but this is from Puck. This is from Matt Boloney, of course, he was the former editor of The Hollywood Reporter. Let me read this. But look at the Illumination movies of the so-called post-pandemic era. Sing 2, 405 million worldwide amid theater shutdowns. Minions, The Rise of Gru, 939 million. Super Mario Brothers movie, 1.3 billion and counting. All well done. And this is the kicker. And congrats to Illumination CEO Chris Meladandri. I think I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. Who may have leapfrogged Marvel's Kevin Feige as the most important creative executive at any Hollywood studio.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Oh,
Isn't he on the board now of the board for Nintendo? I think he's on the board now.
That's the guy who's on the board. He's now on the board of Nintendo of America.
Renegade Online.